Hey, this is Anney.
And Samantha.
And welcome to Stuff I Never Told You, a production of iHeartRadio. And today, spoilers, because we're talking about a really recent.
I didn't realize it was that recent.
I didn't either. But we're talking about the 2024 young adult graphic novel Lunar New Year love story, written by Gene Luen Yang and illustrated by LeUyen Pham. And probably obvious why we chose this, but it's as we record, Lunar New Year is underway.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we wanted something around that. The inspiration for this work was in part because Lunar New Year and Valentine's Day often overlap. And Yang's future wife at the time hated Valentine's Day. She thought it was like a big corporate lie. And so he really liked it though. So he started to sort of combine them, make Lunar New Year themed Valentines for her. And so that was a part of where this came from. And I just have to say, it is really beautifully illustrated.
It is. It is such a great work. I feel like graphic novels, we don't see enough women illustrators. So I'm really glad to see this, especially in this level. I will say this made me feel really good. I felt really whole. It was so wholesome. It literally, I was like, I like this. I also love that and I know we're going to talk about it in a minute, but they have a combination of different Asian ethnicities, and you don't see that a lot, especially in conversation about Lunar New Year. Yeah. Which you would think would be, but it's kind of divisive, surprisingly so.
Yeah. Yeah. It is. And I read a bunch of interviews with the creators, and it's really interesting because both of them are illustrators and writers. Mm-hmm. But the writer really felt like he wanted, because the main character is a young teenage girl, it's we need a woman to do this. Mm-hmm. And he was saying how much she added to it through that. And so that's the importance of making those decisions and those steps, because it really did show. It's absolutely beautiful. Oh my gosh. All right. So I'm going to run through the plot. It is a bit longer than what we normally do. It's a graphic novel. So, it moves, there's images, but the images are so much to take in.
Yeah. I feel they put a lot of folklore in here too, of things that wouldn't be, including an Italian figure.
Yes. I can't wait to talk about that, because I was like, wait, what is this? I must look this up immediately. So it is a lot going on, but it's absolutely worth it. But I'm going to try to condense it, is what I'm attempting to say. The story primarily takes place in Oakland, California, and follows Vietnamese American Valentina Tran. Through a montage in the beginning, we learn that Val was named for Valentine's Day, the day of her conception. She has a quote, imaginary friend named Saint V, who's essentially a Cupid, and encourages her to love, and celebrate Valentine's Day. Val especially loves Valentine's because she gets mysterious cards in her locker every year. We also learn that she lives alone with her dad after the death of her mom. Anyway, every year she makes her class and her dad cute but very dorky Valentines, like the one she gets in her locker, sometimes with the help from her friend from ballet, Bernice. However, when they get to high school, they've quit ballet. Bernice increasingly makes fun of her, saying that they were too old for it. It seems like the class agrees, and a lot of them make fun of her when they realize she was the one who made these cards. However, one person, Jay, seems moved, but the rest of the class mocks him, and he tears up the card. Then, later that day, her father cries and asks her to please stop doing it. Please stop giving me this card. The following day, her paternal grandmother shows up without warning and has an argument with her son in Vietnamese before dragging Val off to church. While there, she sees a statue of Saint Valentine, a really foreboding, menacing statue that replaces the Cupid version of Saint V. This happens after her grandmother reveals her mother isn't actually dead, but instead left and is getting married. Overwhelmed and hurt, Val dismisses her grandmother and has a huge fight with her dad. And Valentine's Day is now ruined for her. Off the table. Val starts dating. It doesn't start out great. Meanwhile, her friend Bernice is very openly going through as many people as possible. Like, she's dating as many people as possible for a short time. Val's relationship with her dad deteriorates to the point that they barely talk. One night, Val comes home and he's very drunk. She isn't sure what to do, so she contacts her grandmother, after 2 years, I believe, who comes over and informs Val it was the day that her mother had gotten remarried. Her grandmother laments about how there are no happy couples in their family and how they are unlucky in love. St. V tells her we can only count on suffering. And when Val asks if there's a way out, he tells her to give him her heart and she won't hurt anymore. She won't hurt ever again. She promises to give it to him in a year if she doesn't find true love. Her grandmother takes her to the local Lunar New Year celebration, and Val instantly loves it. There she sees a lion dance, and from the mouths of one of the lions, she receives a red envelope with a red paper heart valentine in it, like the ones she used to make and hand out. After the dance is over, she recognizes one of the dancers as Jay, the boy who had ripped up her valentine. She tries to give back the heart valentine, thinking it was him, but Jay's cousin Les intervenes. And Val is quickly attracted to Les and goes on a date with him, or a sort of date. However, we learn that Jay made the valentine despite what Val thinks. So Val doesn't know it, but we as the audience know it. Val picks up lion dancing, which features 2 dancers, the head and the tail, where she is tutored by Les. It doesn't go well at first, and Jay annoys her, telling her she's treating it like just a dance when it's more than that. The head and the tail of the lion must become one, and dance as one heart. Her and Les improve, and she sees this as a sign of their relationship being true love. Like, oh, it's going in the right direction. And just to mention, Les has a huge media presence. Like, social media. I was looking at his followers. I was like,
he's got 10,000 followers. I saw that too.
I'm like, whoa. And he's very rich. His father's very rich. But anyway, Les impresses Val with a very expensive date and takes a selfie of their first kiss, which I have to say would be a huge turnoff for me, but, you know, do as you will. Jay apologizes for ripping up the Valentine's Day card. Meanwhile, Les starts flirting with other girls in front of Val and refuses to say that they're dating, like he and Val are dating.
They do not have a DTR.
They do not have that. So annoyed, Val continues to see him. So she's annoyed, but she's like, okay, whatever. She really wants to find this true love. She invites her dad to one of her lion dance performances and meets Jay and Les's families. At the performance, Val sees the girls Les has been flirting with and posting about and trips up a bit, causing Les to hurt his ankle. Other than that, it mostly goes off without a hitch. As Les and her grow further apart, she grows closer to Jay, who admits that his father died of cancer when he was young and that the Valentine's Day card he ripped up reminded Jay of him. And then the classmates laughed, and so he tore it up. He also shares that he was, quote, too much of a coward to visit his father in the hospital when he was dying, not wanting to see him like that, and that he still sees a vision of him. Lion dancing dispels evil spirits and brings good fortune, and he hopes it will give him peace with his father. Val realizes that she might not be alone in seeing ghosts or some kind of apparition. So she starts lion dancing solo in her room to ward off St. V. And it kind of works for a while. Cracks start to show in her relationship with Bernice, who doesn't want to turn out like her parents, trapped in a miserable marriage, so ends them early. She believes Val's view of love is naive. Val's relationship with Les becomes increasingly strained too, as he continually is with other girls and not her. At the same time, she grows closer to Jay and admits to him her visions of Saint V. The lion dancers start performing at weddings until one fateful one where Val chooses to dance with Jay over Les, because she's seeing Saint V and she's like, you understand it. Please dance with me. And almost kisses him and then runs into her biological mother, who reveals she actually tried to come back, but her father wouldn't let her come back, and that the mysterious Valentines she'd been getting in her locker had been from her. This wedding was a performance for her new husband's clients, and this new husband pushes Val, causing Jay to shove him into the wedding cake. Val confronts her dad again. Distraught, she calls Jay, who meets her and takes her to a spot where they can sit on the trunk of the car and look at the moon and stars. They kind of cuddle a little bit. However, the next day, he informs Val that Les actually does care about her, and he can't hurt his cousin by pursuing anything with her. On top of that, the dance club is being sued because of what happened at the wedding. So they're not doing anything. Les invites her to practice with him and Jay and their uncle. However, that ends pretty abruptly when Val confesses some of her feelings for Jay, and he doesn't answer, and she leaves. Okay, here come a bunch of moving pieces. This is the finale, so lots going on. Val and Bernice have a huge fight about love and being dead inside, maybe. After Bernice blocks Jay's number on Val's phone, Jay's mother tells him she's going back to Korea, and Val decides to go with her grandmother and her golden girls on a trip to Rome. Depressed about Val, Jay decides to move to Korea with his mother after the Lunar New Year lion dance. Val's having a great time in Rome. I love this. And her grandmother introduces her to her maternal grandmother, who is a nun. Jay's uncle gets Jay and Les to talk it out. Jay talks to his father's ghost and makes a heart valentine for Val and gives it to Bernice, who of course reads it. On a tour in Rome, Val sees the skull of Saint Valentine, who essentially tells her love hurts, but it's worth it. Bernice gets a hold of Val, the two make up, and Bernice tells her that Jay is planning on leaving after the Lunar New Year, and he asks Val to come and say goodbye. With the help of her grandmothers, as in both of her grandmothers, winning poker money. So they basically are like, hey, who owes us money from their group? Because they have these weekly poker nights. Val is able to afford a flight change, which we all know are very expensive. I was like, no way. And makes it back just in time. She makes Jay a valentine that says, my heart is yours, and dances in the opposing lion, passing it to Jay in the dance, thus vanquishing Saint V. They kiss. She reconnects with her mother and her father. Happily ever after.
Perfect.
Yeah, it's a very sweet ending.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we'll talk about this more later, but the illustrations are so great because, like, there's just kind of a creepy vibe throughout.
Yeah.
With Saint V. And then at the end, it's just so bright. It's just like such a bright thing. Oh my gosh. Okay. So themes. Obviously a big theme in this is love and true love. So this is in part demonstrated through color. And I really, if you're interested in it, you can look up interviews with the illustrator, and she talks about being very particular and deliberate about the color choices. But also it made me kind of laugh because it reminded me of when we got our book, who had a little bit of graphic novel portions printed, and they were talking about the difficulty of getting it printed.
Yeah.
And I was like, yep.
Yeah.
I relate.
We had to come back and be like, we have to choose color schemes. There's only this. It's only this.
It's only this or this.
Yeah.
But yes, it's especially clear with Saint V and then later Saint Valentine, because Saint V is like a dark and scary void. And when he's around, or it's around, it drains the color from Val. Like, she becomes really kind of grayish. Meanwhile, the Cupid version, the first version, is very childlike, very bright. And then the last version, which I call like the reality, is a colorful skull with a flower crown. And it's an amalgamation of them both, the good and the bad, and the difficulty and the pain and the beauty. But it's really cool because the creators have talked about it. And it's like, you know, when you're a kid, you believe true love as this perfect, beautiful, what I've seen in whatever movie. And then you have your first heartbreak. And then it's like, this is for the birds. What is this? This is just pain. And why do I want this? And then when you kind of mature, you realize it's both.
Right.
It's both of these things.
I mean, definitely in that conversation we have that her first heartbreak was her dad lying to her about his one romance, like the one true love of his life that died. And so they mourned it like that. And so she had this embellishment of love.
Yeah. And I think a lot of kids have that, where you idealize maybe a parental, some sort of romantic relationship in your life. And you think, true love is real because here it is. And then if something happens, you're like, oh no. Okay, it's not. It is a very destabilizing thing of like, oh, I thought I knew what it was.
Right.
It's also very clearly talking about the kind of whole better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all.
Right.
I think you see that with Bernice. Bernice is dealing with a different issue with her parents, where she's like, oh, she didn't have that idea of idealized love. Instead, she was like, no, I'm going to protect myself from this because I see how bad it is over here. So she kind of had to come back and realize there can be this real emotional depth of love, and it's worth it, at least to my friend, to pursue it. And it's also like, it talks a lot about the pain of shutting yourself off, because like, if you think about it, if the Saint V, the kind of dark version, is telling her like, oh, you'll be numb, but it won't hurt.
Right.
But her father's actions, because of being afraid of being hurt again, hurt her. It definitely feels like the illustration of Saint V when he's in that form looks like a Grim Reaper. Like
it does.
It doesn't look good.
Right. I mean, he and the version of the father that Jay sees are similar in that realm. But yeah, it's interesting because you also have that shut off, that shut away his family. Like, she didn't see her grandmother for a very long time, and she didn't know why. Her mother, essentially, it was just him and her in the world, and that's what he wanted. And then, but the world came crashing in on him because his wife was getting married, and because he had shut himself off, he didn't have any other relationships. And it had been years.
Yeah.
And he still was pining over that.
Yeah. And I mean, that we're going to talk about that more later, but that is another big theme in this, is like facing realities and truths. And so I think it's interesting you brought up Jay's father does look like that, but Jay wants to see him. He feels guilt.
Yeah.
But he
doesn't want to seem like that. Like,
exactly.
That's the thing.
But he had to face it. That's what he wanted because of his guilt. Okay. Also, just to mention, there are a lot of fun romantic tropes in this.
Look, the Asian community loves a good trope, and they live in them. Like, they have not passed by it, and I think that's what makes them successful right now, is because we kind of want to go back to it because the reality sucks. So tropes make it better, okay?
It's true. I mean, we recently did Your Monday Mini on There's a Reason We Like Tropes. It's kind of fun. You're kind of predicting, like, oh, when is this going to happen?
Right. And then you can predict that this is going to have a happy ending. That's kind of nice.
Yeah, it is kind of nice. So we've got the interrupted near kiss, the airport. Oh my goodness.
The,
the love triangle, weddings, Valentine's Day, misunderstandings galore. Ultimatums, kind of. I don't think it's necessarily a serious, but they're like, I'm leaving for Korea. Please come say goodbye.
Right.
Like that kind of thing. And then sort of the like, go find yourself on a trip.
Yeah. I mean, you also have the older ladies being the funny antagonists, which is a big Asian trope, as well as a parent leaving. Whether it's death or like abandonment. That's a big trope in all of them. I don't know why. And usually the mother, I want to say that, is always the bad guy. Even for Jay, the mother was always seen as drunk because she wasn't handling herself either. So I'm like, why do y'all hate moms so much?
The grandmothers, yes. The mothers.
Well, I love that the one grandmother that she just met who has become a nun was like, don't call me grandmother. Like, call me sister, da-da-da-da.
She's also like, being a nun is not for you, which I appreciated, but was kind of funny.
But like this whole level of like, and then the other grandmother being like, yeah, I forgave your father. And he's like, I didn't apologize. I just called you. And he's just like, yeah, it's close enough.
Right. She was like, I need to step in. I need to intervene here.
I mean, like, if it was a Korean drama, yes, the harmony would definitely be the one that comes through and a little bit overtaking.
Mm-hmm.
Obnoxiously so, but out of good heart.
Yeah. That was the vibe I got. She just show up.
Did she criticize her weight a little bit? Yes.
Which is pretty wild because she's very thin, but all right.
Yeah. Because it was a Chef Boyardee. She was
Chef Boyardee.
But to be fair, if she wants to come and cook a Vietnamese dinner for me and a homemade pho, I would take that kind of slander.
Yeah, me too. Absolutely. No question. No question. We're going to unpack some of those family tropes more in a bit, but I did want to mention there's also some things like around relationships and dating I just found interesting. And one of them is, this is a pretty, like, social media is involved in it. And it was interesting to see how dating looks in our modern age. But one of the things that came up with me is that whole labels, that DTR.
Yeah, the DTR she tried to have. Am I the girlfriend or am I not? And he's like, well, we're together.
It's like, you're my
girl.
Yeah.
You're my girl. But not really.
These other two girls, when he shows up and it's kind of like apologizing and then the other girl, Sophia, appears. Oh my gosh. But that is a thing. And I will admit, this came up in like my past relationship pretty hard because I just wasn't on social media and I kept saying I'm not like trying to spite you or something.
Isn't that odd? Like, do you? And especially if you've been married for years, it kind of identifies you, like meaning like, oh, that's so and so and so and so. That makes sense. Like when my parents do it, that makes sense. Kind of like you have a generic name. Oh, who are you married to? Oh, I know this person. But like even now, obviously we're not on Facebook as much, and like that's kind of more of a boomer-ish thing now, especially now. But like even when I first started it, doing relationship stuff was so weird to me to announce it. I was like, why? It's not like you're married. Like it's, you know what I mean? Like that. Yeah. I could see engagement as a way of like making an announcement essentially. But to be like, I'm not single. I'm in a relationship. It's complicated. Like,
it's complicated. Oh my goodness.
Such a weird status.
It was. I
mean, I guess maybe that's your sign to tell that other person you want a DTR when you put it's complicated.
But see, clearly this was really interesting for me because one time my ex-boyfriend asked me for the DTR and I just started crying. That should have been my first sign something was wrong.
That would be that. Yes, that would be the sign.
I wasn't expecting it. I don't know, but yeah. But when I was reading this, I was like, no, clearly he is in the wrong, or at least like that's a pretty thing to do.
Right.
So it was introspective for me. Also, I feel like a lot of this was about understanding the ups and downs and people's flaws and their history, but also their, the things they're good at. And because I feel like every character had, their goods and the bads, and relationships are also like that. And I would add in here the love between friends, because Bernice and Val it was a pretty bad fight. But they both made up. And it wasn't like the smoothest makeup or anything like that, but like the effort. Because they've been friends for a long time. So I would say that's a theme. And then, yes, Truth and Lies. Oh my gosh. So much family drama in this. So much family drama. Her father and his multiple lives, like not just the one where you're like, oh, wow. Then there's the second one that comes later.
Yeah.
Like, okay. And then you don't get to see the mother too much. I feel like you get a good vibe from her in that short time she's there, and also from the Valentine.
She's still married the dude.
She's still married the dude.
And he tried to push her out. Like, that's sketch. Who already had a bad, like, everybody had a bad taste in his mouth just from him talking, being like the way he was. And so I'm like, I don't know about your choices, Mom.
Yeah, that guy was no good. But it does seem like, again, she's interested in rekindling this relationship, but she was the one leaving those dorky Valentines. She was giving them to the grandmother, the paternal grandmother, to put them in her locker. But she also kept saying the past is in the past, which I thought was interesting. And a big theme of this was, as we said, confronting truths directly, instead of kind of speaking around them or never talking about them, but actually talking it out. And that you see over and over again with a bunch of different characters. And also the fear of repeating the mistakes of the past. You also see that. So it's kind of overcoming some of the trauma of the past, but by facing it directly instead of just like dismissing it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Then family. Family was big. And as we mentioned, learning from older generations, I think, was a pretty big theme. You have Val's grandmother. You also have Jay's uncle. Both of them very influential. Very like, here's the information you need. Here's what we're going to do. Step in.
Let's go.
Yep. And of course, identity, religion, and culture. So I, again, really recommend reading interviews with the creators, because it was really, really interesting. Because it's kind of it's a smash up of cultures, right? Because you've got Valentine's Day, which is very Western. And then you got Lunar New Year, which is very Eastern. And having them come together, and that kind of representing Val and her life experience as a first-generation immigrant. But it was really interesting to read. And, this is way too big of a topic to go in here. But the illustrator, especially when it comes to religion, she says she thought growing up, she thought Christianity was Eastern because it was just so commonplace.
Mm-hmm.
And it never occurred to her that it wasn't. Because you have like the grandmother in the story taking her to, it's Catholic church, right?
Right.
Church.
Catholic, yeah.
Yeah. And so it's really fascinating read. And as you alluded to earlier, because the writers backgrounds, this story has Chinese, Korean, and Vietnamese elements. So that's really cool. That's really cool to see. And then you got like Val not knowing the language and traditions and kind of being shamed for it at a couple points in the story. And there's also a whole thing about the symbolism of the lion in Christianity and in Eastern culture that they write about too. The creators have spoken about too, and that is really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of cool stuff here. Food. Yes, I love how much food is involved in this.
Yes.
Which is also like going back to the Chef Boyardee versus like all these other things. It's like the mashup of cultures. Prevalent throughout.
I love the grandmother bringing her own rice to an Italian restaurant.
Yes. And in the background earlier, one of them is like, I hope my rice cooker made it through customs. Yes.
I missed that one completely. But I think it's fantastic. I love the fact that they do bring in so many themes, and they kind of shame her because she doesn't know, as you were saying, the Vietnamese culture, but it had to do with the fact that her dad was shutting all the culture out once again, and she lost that. And ironic that the dude who shamed her the most outside of the grandmother was her now stepdad, not knowing that he was about to be her stepdad.
Yep. Again, not a great guy.
Not a good guy.
Not a great guy.
Not a fan. Not a fan.
No. The whole situation was strange too, because it was Les's dad who was trying to secure a business partnership.
Right. So he had a banh mi place.
Yes.
And he was trying to even use Val at one point and be like, tell me about your culture so I can get this business.
Yes. And then, of course, lastly, obviously, Lunar New Year was a big theme. Lion dancing was a big theme. Reconnecting with yourself and with people and culture was a really big theme. So I loved it. It was absolutely beautiful. It was fun. It was a lot of drama, but it was fun.
It was a feel-good book. I really was like, this will have an impact. Like, it will be one of those that I think back on. I'm like, I remember that scene. It is. And the illustrations are gorgeous. And it's perfect in line with, like, the Lunar New Year stuff. So go find it. Use it. Celebrate with it. Learn some stuff. I feel like it can be... Don't do too much because it could be a little bit racist, but they're talking about their own culture, so beware.
Right. Always.
Remember, if you're not Asian, don't laugh too hard.
Oh, no. I laugh when I'm nervous.
I'm just kidding.
It's one of the things I'm working on, though.
Hey, laughing's not a bad thing.
Well, yeah, definitely go check it out. It's really, really great read. And if you have any suggestions for what we should do next on Book Club, please let us know. You can email us at hello@stuffmonevertoldyou.com or at stephaniemomstuff@iheartmedia.com. You can find us on Blue Sky at Momstuff Podcast or on Instagram and TikTok at Stuff Never Told You. We're also on YouTube. We have a Tea Public store and we have a book you can get wherever you get your books. Thanks as always to our super producer Christine, our executive producer Maya, and our contributor Joey.
Thank you.
And thanks to you for listening. Stuff I Never Told You is a protection of iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, you can check out the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.